fortunate to be able to have that foundation to be able to serve in the role that I have now as Dean of Career and Workforce Education. But let me tell you, it's been a rocky road. And like I said, there's going to be some vulnerability on both mine and Dr. Talok's part in being able to share some of the struggles that we had going through, a primarily male-dominated field in CTE. I was able to find inspiration and some supportive mentors that you'll be able to hear a little bit more about later. But those mentors and champions really did help me in helping me to, really kind of believe in the potential that I had and really being able to lift me up and be able to guide me on this road. So if we take it back all the way to kind of the late 90s, I started out in a very male-dominated career in athletic training. And I worked as a personal trainer. And that personal trainer role kind of took me while I was studying to become an athletic trainer. I was in school. I was also a personal trainer at a local health club for folks that were around in the late 90s. I worked for Bally Total Fitness. And I was one of 15 personal trainers there. And they were all men, and I was the only female that was a personal trainer there. But this was a great job for me. This is a great stepping stone for me. I was able to, I worked there for over a decade, and I learned a lot throughout this career. As I growed and developed as a personal trainer, I kind of delved into sales a little bit more. And I transitioned into, providing some marketing, sales, and service for Bally Total Fitness. And over the course of 3 years, I had received 7 different promotions that had taken me from, the entry-level job when I first started there, which was basic. It was cleaning machines and, on the very lucky occasion, racking weights. So I'd pick up the weights and rack them. That was really important. And on the rare occasion that somebody came in and they didn't know how to use the machines, I got to stop cleaning machines and go teach them how to use fitness equipment. So that was like my first role there. And then I moved into a series of 7 different roles that took me to, at the kind of, end of my journey or close to the end of my journey, a general manager there. In a very heavily dominated male, I would tell you probably 80% of the population that worked for this large health and fitness chain was a male. And for great reason. We worked 12 hours a day. And we were expected to take a 2-hour break. Well, what do you do during a 2-hour break? Well, it's expected that you work out because you work for a health club. You have to look the part. So that was all part of the routine. And, as I grew a little bit and, met my husband and decided to have a family, that single life that I lived was, about to change. And it was kind of a pivot for me in terms of, making a different change in what I was looking to do. So, with those different changes and, looking at starting a family, I was kind of faced with a big challenge, a new kind of turning point in my role there. So I decided, if I'm gonna, live a different life, not being this single person anymore and having a family and not working these 12 hours, I decided that I was going to go into a role as working for the training and development division and really become a teacher and kind of embrace teaching others how to become a personal trainer, getting them CPR certified, doing all sorts of different things. But, this, work kind of provided me with a different opportunity in terms of, being able to be a wife and be a mother. And it was hard. And as a female in a male-dominated field, I always felt that I had to work twice as hard to prove that I was worthy. We sometimes feel that we have to do double the work that they do. And, it wasn't till later in my life that, I found out that this wasn't the case. But this critical turning point kind of, it put me in a position to really kind of evaluate my life and, determine what was going to be better for myself. So this special assignment, it really showcased my leadership capabilities. It provided me with the opportunity to, lesson plan and teach CPR, first aid, personal training. We talked a little bit about sales techniques. I felt really awesome that I was able to have the best of both worlds. I was able to have family and a really meaningful career. You know, I was a teacher and I loved it. The pathway to dean, though, some of those challenges still kind of came as I, you know, moved into different levels of education. The pathway to dean, it's been quite a journey, but I'm grateful for every experience that I've had along the way. In 2011, I left the health and fitness organization and I moved into public education. So I began working in the San Gabriel Valley for a district where I was able to serve not only K-12 students, but also post-secondary students. And I got to teach business and personal finance. I got to teach marketing, sales, and service. And I also taught workplace ethics, which was really important. It was my first stab at teaching in an Associates of Applied Science. And I really loved teaching. This is where I really felt my groove. And I felt that I don't know if there was any other career out there that I could love even more until I became a teacher mentor. So I became a TOSA, you know, probably about 2014. And I had the opportunity, this is hands down by far to this day, even I love this job even more than the job I have today, was being a coach and being a mentor. In CTE, if you're a teacher, when you start teaching, you come from industry. And, you know, you're great at whatever your skill may be. If you're an automotive technician, you are a great automotive technician, but you may not have the skills to manage a classroom, which is very different. And as that teacher mentor and teacher coach, I was really able to kind of provide a lot of resources to teachers and really kind of teach them how to be a teacher, help them navigate classroom management. Those are just some of the things that I was able to do to kind of efficiently be able to help others through. But during that time, I was faced with a really difficult health factor. You know, in late 2014, I was diagnosed with lupus and stage 4, which is end stage renal failure. So immediately I had just started this leadership role and I had to do dialysis. And this dialysis that I did, I made the choice to do home dialysis. And that was something that I had to do overnight. So it was an 8-hour dialysis so that I can, you know, rely on this little machine 8 hours a night to be able to give me the life to be able to go to work the next day. And I did this for 6 years, you know. I was fighting for my life, but I was determined to overcome this challenge. I wanted to prove to my children, the teachers that I supported, my family, my friends, everybody, that this too shall pass, that this was something that was just another, you know, step, something that I had to overcome in my leadership journey. And it was challenging nonetheless, and I really kind of kept this inside. I really didn't talk about it. Nobody at work knew. I didn't want anybody to know. I had, you know, transitioned a couple of different times, so it was really something that I could kind of keep to myself. And you know, I waited for 6 years. I waited on a donor list. I was waiting for a kidney transplant. During that time, though, I had, you know, transitioned from being this teacher mentor to applying for a position. In those 6 years, I wanted to still grow and continue to grow on my path and my leadership journey. So I was able to become a coordinator of CTE. And then a few years later, I was able to transition into this great role of executive director of educational services. And I had just started this role, and I kid you not, I was there probably maybe 2 months, and I get the call, and the call says, you know, we have a match. And I'm thinking to myself, how am I going to explain to my new employer, brand new employer, hey, I just got here. but I've been waiting for, the last 6 years for, oh, by the way, I'm on dialysis, because I never wanted to share that. Who was going to hire somebody that's a risk like that? Who's going to hire somebody that's on dialysis, right? That'd be like an automatic disqualifier, in someone's mind, like, oh, they're going to be out a lot, right? So I never shared that with anybody. So I had this challenge of, talking to this superintendent and saying, hey, I'm going to be out for a couple of months. I know the school year just started and we just transitioned to online learning. It's in the middle of the pandemic, right? This is September 1, 2020, beginning of the school year. But hey, everything's going to be okay. I'll be back in a couple of months. And sure enough, I was blessed and fortunate. We talked a little bit about some of those mentors and those people that believed in my potential. And this superintendent said to me, don't worry about anything. Everything's going to be fine. And, I can't believe, first off, that the superintendent had known me. Mentors will bring you wherever. If you do the job, guess what? This person I had worked with 6 years prior, they had no idea I was on dialysis. 6 years later, they had an opportunity for me. I came to do this job. She said, first off, I can't believe that you didn't share with me that you were on dialysis. It kind of saddened her a little bit because, we were close. And I said, look, I felt that I needed to hide that, to protect myself, to protect, my employment, whatever it may have been at the time. But this mentor believed in me and believed that I would return and, be able to continue on that path. And, she really, believed in the fact that I was more than enough. And that was important for me. My current role as the Dean of CWE is interesting because, like we mentioned in the beginning, CTE is not only a male-dominated career, but it's you don't see too many Latina females in CTE. And we're going to share some of those stories a little bit later and talk about some of our leaders in CTE and definitely our leaders in color. But thank you guys for listening for the last couple of minutes to my story and my leadership journey. We'll move it over to the next slide where Sylvia will be able to share a little bit about her journey as well.
Thank you, Bridget. Wow, you're very inspiring. So thank you. Let's see. As the Dean of Math, Science, and Engineering, I've often had people ask me, even before I was Dean, just as a math major, when I was a math faculty, when people ask, how are, what do you do for a job? And I'm a mathematics instructor at a community college. There's these assumptions that are made like, oh, wow, you must be very smart, or you must be, one of these people whose school in particular always came easy to them. However, this was not the case for me. And in fact, it was the struggle that I experienced in learning math and going through a STEM degree that actually made that choice for me to go and continue on with it. So in fact, I was pretty bad at school. I didn't work very hard in elementary school. And so that kind of continued on through junior high. By the time I got to high school, I realized I really want to do well. I got like my first D/F on a midterm report card, and I was like, something's got to change, and it's got to be me. Unfortunately, by that time, I didn't know how to study. So one of the biggest assets for me was my friends. I am a first generation college student. My parents had completed high school in Columbia, but they didn't have a lot of consejos to kind of show me how to study and how to learn math, which was my biggest struggle in high school. So I started asking friends, who shared their strategies with me. One even started tutoring me for free, just on her own time in chemistry class, because that was another challenge. So I would say that some of the most important people in my education and career journey have been my peers and my friends. And my family unit was able to support me with shelter, with food, with love, encouragement, the drive to keep going, and remind me of what my goals were, which was just as important as the people who were helping me to achieve those goals in the actual coursework or in my job positions. So with that, I just want to share how important it is for the networking aspect in your personal journey to achieve your goals. Let's see, but I mentioned that opportunities to work with people, those were some of the most impactful things for me. And it ultimately is what made me decide that I wanted to become an educator. I saw my peers, some of my peers really struggle with math classes, and in fact, change their entire educational journeys because they couldn't complete a few math courses. So I just thought that's devastating to change your entire career trajectory because of one subject. So that's what led me to continue in math, even though it was extremely difficult for me. In fact, I almost dropped out of that major at 3 distinct points. Once while I was in community college, once while I was working towards a bachelor's, and finally when I was obtaining a master's in mathematics. And each time it was my family and my loved ones, my boyfriend at the time, who is now my husband, who just kept reminding me to keep going, to keep working, to keep struggling, to keep at it. And that is what I would hope for everyone when you're in the middle of that difficult kind of chasing your dream aspect. But in that struggle, in that productive struggle of doing well in school, is when I really fell in love with not only mathematics and science, but with helping others. And it's ultimately what made me decide that I wanted to teach and dedicate my life to education. So some of the roles I've had, in addition to teaching as a full-time faculty member, I started my full-time career at Pasadena City College, where I worked for 15 years. Most of the time was spent in the classroom, but I also took on different roles, such as being co-chair of the Facility Standing Committee. And in that role, I was able to advocate for marginalized groups with space issues. In my last 3 years while I was there, I moved out of the classroom and became the MESA faculty coordinator and the Success Center's faculty lead. So MESA stands for Math, Engineering, Science Achievement. It's a wonderful program that helps underrepresented and historically impacted students achieve success in any STEM field. And it was something that I became really passionate about. And I think that's another key point. If you're passionate about something, it is going to help you through the difficult times. It's going to help push you through and continue going. So at times when I felt that I wanted to give up and change direction, some of the most impactful words that I heard were, if you do what you're supposed to do, when you're supposed to do it, you'll be where you want to be when you get there. And just that little phrase, I know it's every time I wanted to stop doing my homework, or I felt like I couldn't do my homework, for example, I just kept those words in mind. Just get through it, keep working at it, and it'll pay off. And I can honestly say that every effort that I have put into my education and my career has paid off eventually, even when things seemed tangential and unrelated, but it has come back to help me in some way. So I decided to start applying to be a dean, so that I could have a larger impact and help with eliminate systemic barriers in education, which there are a lot of, to support students in different ways, to support faculty so that they could support students in different ways, and bring just overall, try to bring and introduce change, which is very difficult for a lot of people. So this was not a linear move for me. I applied to be a dean at another community college. I was super excited. I did very well in the first level interviews, and I got moved forward to the final interview. So when you get moved forward to the final interview, it essentially is like a stamp from everyone who saw you in the first level, or most everyone, right? Your points are there, kind of showing that they believe that you are a good position, a good fit for this position. That you would be hired, they would be good, happy with you being hired. So when I got to that second level position, I was confident. I make flashcards. I'm an avid believer in doing as much as you can to prepare. So I had prepared with as many flashcards as I could. My stack was like, I think 300 flashcards, and just kept looking at those. I went in to that interview. I sat down and I looked down the table, and it was all men on my hiring, on that second level hiring committee. And it was impactful. But I thought, okay, it's okay. Just, you practiced, and you kind of like pump yourself up, and you tell yourself you're prepared. However, what I wasn't prepared for was the atmosphere that was there. There was almost no eye contact. When I did get eye contact, no eye contact from the peripheral people. So the VP of academic affairs had his team there, and I had very little eye contact. However, from the VP himself, I was getting nothing but eye contact, and a very smug smile, which immediately got into my head. And that undermined almost everything that I was prepared for. So, because all I kept thinking is, why is he smiling in this way? And not taking any notes at all, when typically, you're used to people taking notes on the points that you're making. So I felt that it was not going well. And as in any second level interview, there are challenge questions. So there were some challenge questions, but even as I answered them, you could feel there was just, I can't even put it into words exactly, but there was a different sense of disbelief. And I don't know if it was because I was a woman. I don't know. I don't know if it was because of my untraditional background. So as I mentioned, I worked for 3 years in 2 campus-wide leadership roles at Pasadena City College, as the MESA coordinator and the Success Center's faculty lead. Now, most people who go into leadership positions have had a managerial position in the past, or they have been, like, for example, department chairs to some capacity. And I did not have that. So I knew in the back of my head that could play into this. And I ended up not getting this position, which was fine. They hired another man, which was, I don't know if that's telling either. But what it did help me with was this experience really prepared me for the possibility of what could come next. So how I could prepare for that in the future if I faced it again. And I think that is the most important thing I've gotten out of every step of every position I've held is it is a learning opportunity, and keeping in mind what went wrong and learning from it. So those things I think I'm gonna end with, so that we can move on, and hopefully that you can work with your experiences to help them make you improve in the future.
Thank you so much, Sylvia. We're going to transition into the understanding leadership in STEM and CTE. We're going to go through really quickly define, we'll take a look at the roles, and then we'll also be able to take a look at the key skills involved. Really, as we define leadership in STEM and CTE, we look at it in a way of guiding innovation, inspiring teams, and driving positive change. And it really requires that vision, expertise, and adaptability in a rapidly evolving field. These fields change all the time. I guess automotive we used that example before, constantly changing. We're, in alternative fuels alone, we're looking at so many different transitions. Let's take a look at the roles. Leaders in STEM and CTE span in various positions. Some of those positions look like research directors, project managers, department heads, and industry innovators. And each role has its own shape in terms of how we shape the future of technology and education. Some of the key skills that you'll need to be able to take away in terms of STEM and CTE leaders is really communication is key. Excellent communication skills, problem solving, and team building is huge. As I sit here at my desk, I take every opportunity to build community and team within our department as much as we can. I'm looking at something that I have right here. It's hard for you guys to see, but it's a little keychain because I have a background on right now. But it's really simple. It's something that I do once a month that I think is essential in terms of building team and community. This one, it's a little puzzle piece, and it's a keychain. It says, "Thank you for being an essential piece of our team." And it's just a little card behind it that says, "So glad you're a part of our team. Thank you for all that you do." And just those little things help to build team and community. And that really helps with the balance of, those expertise with emotional intelligence, and it helps us to drive success in what we're doing every day. Next slide. So pathways to leadership, we did talk a little bit about communication and how essential that is, but we go back to the foundation, which truly is education, and really being able to pursue those advanced degrees and certifications. In CTE, it's tremendously important to stay current with your emerging technologies and educational trends. When we say lifelong learning, we truly do believe lifelong learning does exist. It's something that we do all the time, whether it's PD or really getting out there and just advancing our certifications. I can't stress how important networking is in terms of really building meaningful relationships within your field. Attending conferences, joining professional organizations, and engaging in online communities are just a few, but these really help to build that community within your classroom. In CTE, it's so important as you attend these conferences and join those professional organizations, you're able to network and build relationships with people from industry. And it provides you with a tremendous opportunity to bring these industry experts into your classroom as guest speakers. They can also provide work-based learning opportunities for your students. So networking is huge. And we don't think of it as much in the teaching realm, but it's so important to be able to provide our students with those real-world experiences. In terms of experience, take on challenging projects and leadership roles. I think volunteering is huge and really underrated in terms of also being able to network and also being able to gain more diverse experiences and leadership capabilities. Through volunteer experiences, I've been able to learn more about leadership and to be able to experiment with leadership by being able to take on roles in an experience where, you know, by being a volunteer, I wasn't necessarily paid. So it wasn't intimidating for me to make a mistake at that point. So it was really a great way for me to be able to gain that leadership experience. And I can't stress the importance of mentorship. I really have throughout my career been able to kind of organically be able to develop mentors and to be able to be blessed by being around tremendous female mentors in particular that have really been able to impact my journey and to be able to encourage me to be able to mentor others. But if you don't have the opportunity to organically have mentors available to you, we'll talk a little bit later about some online groups that are available to you for networking and for mentorship as well. Innovation in terms of developing unique solutions to industry problems. Consider entrepreneurship or advisory roles to showcase your expertise. This, again, like advisory, really plays a huge part in terms of networking. They all kind of work interchangeably, which is super important for your pathway to leadership. Next slide. All right, we did talk a little bit about mentorship and kind of the opportunities and some of the networking organizations. So for mentorship programs, seeking out mentorship programs within your field or industry really help you to connect with experienced women leaders who can provide guidance and support. In a few slides, we'll share some of those opportunities with you as well. Definitely take a look at networking events. If you can attend industry conferences, you know, the one great thing that Zoom or that COVID, the pandemic did bring to us is Zoom, and it really provides us with a tremendous opportunity to be able to attend conferences, networking events, you know, via our living room. We don't even have to go anywhere half the time. Eventbrite's a great resource to be able to see a lot of PD, networking, industry conferences, workshops, events that are related, not only to women in STEM and CTE, but just leadership in general. Online communities are really supportive as well too in being able to provide forums that have, you know, dedicated women in STEM and CTE, and, you know, surrounding yourself with like-minded individuals really helps to be able to share in experiences and to be able to help you with that additional support. It's a place where you can definitely find that. Next slide. So we did talk about leadership development programs for women. So women in STEM, there are a couple of links that are here, and we can share these slides later as well too. Programs like the Society of Women Engineers and the American Association of University of Women. These organizations offer leadership development resources and networking opportunities. For CTE specifically, there's organizations like the National Women's Business Council and Women's Business Enterprise National Council, which help to provide mentorship, training, and support for women entrepreneurs. And then for general leadership, UCLA has a great Women's Leadership Institute, and Harvard also has the Women in Leadership online program for emerging leaders. These two programs really offer that comprehensive leadership development training for women, and I highly recommend UCLA especially. We have a few folks from Rio Hondo that have attended that have really raved about you know, this particular Women's Leadership Institute. Next slide. Building leadership skills. We talked about really the cornerstones of building leadership skills in terms of communication, innovation and problem solving, adaptability and collaboration. We'll take a somewhat deeper dive into these quickly. In communication, it's really key. We keep using that component, but really being able to articulate your ideas and being able to practice active listening and really being able, I think, part of being a successful leader is being able to adapt to your style and to different audiences. Really being able to read the room is important, and to being able to kind of facilitate that change when needed. In terms of innovation and problem solving, you know, it's so true that we need to cultivate this really this growth mindset, and we really want to encourage creative problem solving. You know, embrace those calculated risks that come along, and, use data to really make those decisions in all that we do. I think, data is something that's really not subjective, and it helps us to be able to utilize critical thinking in a tremendously different realm. Staying flexible is really important. I know from being a leader for the last 10 years, I think flexibility is one of the key attributes. At the end of the day, it's challenging every day because we do want to be able to serve and work within these particular parameters. But life happens, and we work with an array of different employees, and it's really important that we understand all of the differences that in terms of the folks that we serve and the folks that are our internal customers, which are our employees. And being adaptable, I think, has really helped me to be able to kind of navigate my team a little bit better, and to do it with confidence, in knowing that at the end of the day, I'm helping that particular person to be able to, stay more flexible and understand that there are different circumstances for all of us. Collaboration, I think my team hears this all the time from me. I don't make decisions in a vacuum. It takes the entire team to help us to be able to leverage all of our diverse perspectives and to be able to achieve better outcomes. I know, starting in this new role, July 1, both Sylvia and I, we come to teams that have tremendous history, and that's history we don't know. And it's important for us to be able to recognize that history, to be able to learn from those that work alongside us, and to be able to kind of lean on them for guidance in terms of, what culture has been like in the past. And, if change is needed to make things better in the future, we look for the team's perspective on that. Next slide.
All right, so thank you, Bridget. I'm going to go ahead and talk about the next slide, which is advocating for yourself and your students. So this is, in my experience, advocacy should always be grounded in integrity, because you want to be truthful about your needs and how you advocate for yourself. So meanwhile, self-promotion is really important. There are people who you may think of when you see self-promoters, and it's important to do that with, in my opinion, a little bit of humility. Being humble goes a long way. So, but that's not to minimize the fact that you want to showcase your achievements and your successes, and how you came about those successes. Also, to ensure that your students' needs are met accurately, representing their needs and their autonomy, and their dignity throughout the process. So making sure that you get student input and share that, knowing that it may be a handful of students, but they potentially represent a larger student body and a larger need. So keeping that in mind when you share about the needs and the progress that you're trying to make with the change. So when you are going into a new position, sometimes there is room for negotiation as far as pay is concerned, and it's really important to be very clear. And it's very likely going to be uncomfortable for you, especially if you're not used to advocating for yourself. But practice it with other people, practice it with someone that will be honest with you about your delivery. I've also video recorded myself and look back at the video. It is some of the hardest thing to do, to look at yourself responding to mock questions or mock interviews, but it has the most impact. And we are our own worst critics at times, but if we use that to our advantage, that could be very helpful. And don't be afraid to ask for what you need and what other people are getting for that same job. Student empowerment. Now, this is something where I think we can leverage our students' voice, and where listening is going to play the most important role, because we hear what they're saying, but it's the how to kind of carry that forward that's going to be important. And mainly that's, communication and how you communicate that. So coming from a place of positivity and not blaming, not dwelling on the current kind of processes, but finding opportunities to bring forward and ideas to bring forward new change, and getting buy-in from the people who are able to implement that change. So asking for their input and how they could see that change being brought forward, and then acting on it is going to play a very strong role. And fostering networks. Okay, so this is knowing, if you don't know yet, like Bridget and I are new to these positions, so we don't know all the players and all the people that can help support us yet, but being willing to get out there and find and ask for who can help support, and who in the community is really going to be able to advocate and help you is important. And then kind of leveraging that network to connect with not only industry partners, but everyone else. No, thank you. Go ahead. Next slide. All right. So overcoming challenges and barriers. This is something where we, as individuals, have a lot of control, even though it may seem that we don't. So being as prepared as possible, doing your due diligence by taking the time to learn as much about the processes that are in place and asking questions. And that is putting yourself in a vulnerable situation, because it's, in a way, you are admitting that you don't know something, right? When you're asking questions. But what you can get out of that is much more than the limitations it imposes. And I argue that seeking out that advice helps create informal mentorships and gives people the opportunity to feel like they are able to be helpful in the process, not only in the process of the change that you're trying to create, but in the process of helping you develop as an individual in that role. And that has helped tremendously. As far as gender bias goes, sometimes we don't know, excuse me, why decisions are based, or what decisions are based on. So asking, how was this process developed? Why was this process developed? Excuse me. Sometimes we can help identify things that may not work or are not no longer needed, and we can propose new changes and kind of eliminate those potential gender biases. Imposter syndrome. I think every one of us has an imposter syndrome, has experienced it, or will experience it in some case, some event or another. So don't be afraid to dig into that and come from a learner's perspective. I'm so sorry. Creating work-life balance is going to be a challenge. The worst thing that can happen, a coughing fit. Sorry. But although I have struggled with setting boundaries in my personal and work life, I've also seen that every effort that I've put into my work has paid off. So leveraging those kinds of dynamics can be very important. So for example, I have a treadmill with a desk that I can place my laptop on, and I can work and answer emails and sorry, get ahead while I do something that I feel is beneficial for my health. And then limited opportunities and visibility. Well, Sometimes we don't know what we don't know. We don't know what questions to ask. We don't know what opportunities are out there. And this is where, again, mentorship and networking come in, and being willing to say yes to things. You never know what opportunities are going to come from what endeavor. So be willing to say yes and try things that you haven't tried in the past. Next slide. So we're going to talk about additional stories and of success. So increasing female representation in STEM helps drive innovation and creativity because it provides varied perspectives, which result in general and better decision making, no matter who's at the table. So it can lead to more comprehensive and empathetic solutions to complex problems. Next slide. We're going to talk about some trailblazers, and many women trailblazers not only make history, but what they end up doing is they help others succeed by mentoring and advocating for the next generation of women in STEM. And the first woman that we're going to feature here, you may have already known her story because it was featured in the movie Hidden Figures. Katherine Johnson was a human computer. That's what computers were originally. They were humans who were computing calculations for NASA in a very large room full of just single desks with women mainly at the computers. She worked in a time where it was a segregated, male-dominated workplace, and she mentored other women and inspired them to pursue careers in STEM. These women defy stereotypes of what it means to be a typical scientist or engineer. They break down preconceived notions of what women's role in science fields are, and that helps prove that talent is not gendered. So Sally Ride was the first woman in space, and she was chosen for her technical expertise and her ability to perform under pressure. We recognize the importance of breaking down barriers for women, participating in initiatives. And she had a big role in an initiative called the National Girls Collaborative Project. And she's written many books aimed at encouraging girls to pursue careers in STEM. Moreover, trailblazing women often have a lasting legacy that goes beyond their own careers and help shape the future of STEM and ways to continue to reverberate throughout history. So Tu Youyou was the first Chinese citizen to win a Nobel Prize in medicine. She developed an anti-malaria drug that saved millions of lives, and her discovery has had a profound and lasting impact on global health. Trailblazing women often face multiple challenges, including gender bias, lack of representation, and limited access to mentorship or funding. So it's important to be willing to seek those things out, even when they're not apparently there.
Thank you, Sylvia. And to be mindful of everyone's time, I did place in the chat, I know we have our next session to kind of get to. I did place in the chat our slides for today. So please feel free to download those. They do have some resources there for you available. While we just quickly highlight our trailblazing women in CTE, there's a couple that are listed there, and our final takeaways and Q&A will be on for the next couple of minutes if you do have any questions, but please do embrace your journey. Just some final thoughts. Build your network. We talked about that lifelong learning and never stop learning, and remember to always pay it forward. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. We appreciate you spending time with us, and we're happy to stay on for any questions as we transition over to our final session. Thank you.
Thank you to our presenters. Thank you so much, Bridget and Sylvia. Really inspiring stories, and just amazing what you've accomplished. So just want to make sure, yeah, everyone can acknowledge and hopefully ask questions. So before you head out, and I'll make you all co-host, or you all a co-host, so you'll be able to kind of just run if folks have questions. I just have to run to the other session. But before I do, please make sure you enter the opportunity drawing. So you do, as a reminder, for coming and staying, you are entered into this opportunity drawing. And please fill out this short survey. Let me drop it into the chat as well. And you can win a gift card. Some of it up to $100, which is amazing. So please, let me put that in the chat. Where is it? Yeah, you can use the QR code. It should work now. Here is the link. Please put that in the chat. And then our last session, or before we're done and break for lunch, let me put that Zoom link registration. We will also have our opportunity drawing at the end of it as well. So if you can join us for this last session, it's a panel of some of our amazing speakers. And they're really going to talk about advocacy and equity in promoting gender equity in non-traditional pathways in education. So please feel free to join us in this next session. It'll start at noon. So thank you, everybody.
And thank you, Yvonne.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Bridget. Thank you, Sylvia.
Take care. We'll see you in the next one.
Thank you.
Bye.